Hi, shalom friends. Do you know anyone who does not worry? I have never met anyone like that. And if there is such a person, I admire that person. Because I worry about what happened yesterday, what's going to be tomorrow, what's happening now. And it seems almost part of the human condition. So we worry when it's good. Why is it so good? When is the shoe going to fall? We worry about why it might be bad. And if we just stopped and considered for a moment how silly it is, we would stop worrying. So it would seem. As we say, the past we cannot undo, the future has not yet happened, the present is a moment, so what is there to worry about? And yet we keep on worrying. It is said in the name of one of the great tzaddikim, the Rabbi, he said, it's a good thing worry doesn't help, because if it did help, he would worry even more. So what's going on? Why is it that we worry so much? Okay. Another issue, of course, is we're so anxious about worrying, we often try to do things that stop us or help us not to worry, and we're not very successful about that. Whether it be pharmaceuticals, then we're worried about what we're taking, how much we're taking, did we take it? And sometimes we look for entertainment or diversions, and we worry about that. Maybe we can't afford it, maybe it's not good for us. It seems to be a never-ending, like a circle. We worry about worry. Okay. A couple of interesting stories. Story number one. Happened a little bit more than 100 years ago. There lived a very holy tzaddik. His name was Rabbi David of Charkov. He was wise and holy, and he had many admirers. And Hasidim, followers, would come, the scholars for insights in Talmud, Kabbalists for insights of Kabbalah, and simple people for advice of simple things. And business people would come for advice for business. He had a wealthy chassid that dealt with real estate. And this chassid was friendly with a very wealthy non-Jewish landowner called a Poritz, actually, like a nobleman who owned miles of real estate, and he owned a small forest. Now, this chassid, part of his income was that he would buy. He would hire people to cut down trees, and it would be floated downstream, and essentially it was made into logs, into planks. It was used for building. And of course, there's a tremendous expense. You have to buy the tree, and in addition to all of the hard labor of transporting the tree. So he heard that this elderly landowner wanted to liquidate everything. He was selling everything, and he was going to move, and it was like a sale, half price. So he had connections, and he said that he's interested in buying this forest. And it was a deal of a lifetime, because he was going to get it for 1/2 price. But being a devoted chassid, he came to the truck of a Rabbi, and he came in, he said, Rabbi, an unusual deal came to me. It promises to pay a lot of dividends. I could buy a forest for 1/2 the price, and it's for sure that I'll make a lot of money. And I've come to hear your thoughts about it. And the Rebbe looked at him and said, my advice is don't buy it. The chassid was taken aback and repeated once again how lucrative the deal would be, because it was all half price. And again, the Rebbe said, if you're asking my advice is not to buy it. Well, the chassid was very respectful and left. But in this particular case, he felt that maybe the Rebbe didn't get it. And he went and he bought the forest for 1/2 price. He was very excited about this. He went and he hired the people that cut down the wood, the tree, and they found out that the majority of the trees that were felled could not be used for building. They were internally, there was like some type of a fungus or whatever it is, that the inside was not of good quality, and you could not make good quality timber from it. And he suffered a tremendous loss, because to buy this thing, even at half price, he had to mortgage certain things, take loans, liquidate other things. And it took him almost an entire year to put out the fires and just to deal with the loss. In the meantime, the entire year he's berating himself. Stupid! Why didn't you listen to the Rabbi? He advised you 2 times not to buy it. And he was actually embarrassed to go back to the Rabbi until finally he says, look, I lost money. Should I lose my teacher? And he traveled to the Chabad Rabbi. When he came to the Chabad Rabbi, he said, Rabbi, I was a fool. I did not listen to you. But if you knew with your holy inspiration that I was not going to be successful, why didn't you be a little bit more emphatic? You said, my advice is not to buy it. You could have used a stronger language, like, don't buy it, and then I would have considered it coming from heaven. To which the Rebbe told him point blank, says, it was not holy inspiration. So the Chassid said to the Rebbe, then how did you know? He said, it's quite simple. You came in, and you told me you have a great deal, you stand to double and triple your profits, and everything is good, and you never once mentioned God. So I told you, if God is not in your language, it doesn't sound right to me. So I asked you again, and you repeated it again. And I said to myself, if you need God as a partner, if you're not mentioning God, then my advice is not to do it. What a powerful story. You see, we need God in everything that we do. We cannot exist without God. And those of us that are familiar with observance know that one of the most common statements that observant Jews will say is, Im Yirtzeh Hashem, or in English, God willing. So, will I see you at the party? God willing, yes. Will you be able to produce X amount at this time? With Hashem's help, with God's help, I certainly will hope to do it even earlier. And a person might think, what do you mean with God's help? Everything's with God. But the point of it is, sometimes we put God only for emergencies. I once heard, I don't know if it's true or not, about a very wealthy couple that had an only son, and they gave him the best of everything. When he went to college, they gave him a credit card, but interesting enough, the credit card had a daily limit of $150, which they thought was very generous in terms of buying food. But of course, this guy is used to a rich style of living, and 2-3 times a week he would call up and he'd say, here I need books, here I want to buy clothing. And they would say always, yes, by all means, how much do you need? I think I need another 500. No problem. We'll call up and we'll take off the 150 max, we'll make it 700. So someone once asked the parents, you always give in anyway. Why don't you just give him like a monthly allowance? And they said point blank, we want him to call. Could you imagine if he knew that everything would be covered? When will we get a phone call from him? It's like this, we know he calls. It's not an emergency. He's a rich kid, and he wants to go out with his friends. We're okay with that. But we want him to connect to us. Too many of us turn to God when we have another catastrophe, another disaster, or at the very least, something that we can't control. Friends, we cannot control anything. We always need Hashem. So why is it so hard? Another story, and I'll close with this. One of the big tzaddikim who was extraordinary in Jerusalem at the turn of the century was Reb Shlomo Zvila. Again, all tzaddikim, all righteous people are holy and so on, but there were certain of the righteous people where miracles literally flowed through them. They would say things that there was no way possible that they could understand or have the knowledge of what was coming or what happened, and they knew it. So once a person came to Rabbi Shlomo of Zvil, Zechat Tzadik Livracha, and he says to Rabbi Shlomo, he says, I'm doing business, this and that, it's really not working, and I came for a bracha. So Rabbi Shlomo said, I give you a bracha, that you should be successful, and my advice to you is that you increase in your trust in God. So the chassid, with a smile, said, Rebbe, may I tell you a story? And without waiting for a response, he said like this, that there was once a fellow who had an orchard, and it was not producing the amount of fruit that it should. So he went to some holy tzaddik, I don't know his name, and to complain. So the tzaddik was sitting by his desk, and it was an old desk, and it was made out of wood. And there was one piece of the desk that was almost fraying. So he took off a little bit of the wood, and he said to the chassid, take the wood, plant it, and Hashem will help. And he concludes to say to Rabbi Shlomo, and do you know, the whole orchard changed because he planted the wood of the desk. Now, of course, he was hinting to the Rebbe that he would like something tangible, to take back with him. And Rabbi Shlomo looks at him and he says, it's always perplexed me. Why do people choose to believe in things that they don't have to believe in, but they choose not to believe in things they have to believe in? What you have to believe is God can and will take care of you. That's what you have to believe in. And then you have to act according to that belief. Instead, you're telling me a miracle story that might or might not have happened. It's not like it couldn't have happened. Miracles could happen in any way. But no Jew is obligated to believe that this story actually happened. But we all are obligated to believe that God could provide and will provide for us. So friends, the antidote to worry is trust. Trusting in God, believing in God, praying to God, conversing with God, dialoguing with God, if at times complaining to God. But when we know that we have a loving Father in heaven who's always waiting for us to call up and for advice and for help, then the only worry should be is, why am I worried? Shalom.